I'd like to start out with two scenarios. And after each scenario, I'll ask you one question. And I want you to remember what you say. So the first one goes like this. You are walking down, minding your own business. You're going to go do something that you just do in your spare time. But then you look around and you see that there is a trolley going down its tracks. High speed, out of control. The brakes aren't working. And you see that if nothing happens, it's going to hit 5 workmen who are standing on the track in front of it. And they're all going to die gruesome, horrible deaths. However, you have to be standing by a switch. And you know that if you push that switch, the trolley will go onto a different rail. And that rail only has one person on it. It's still a workman, but it's only one person. So I'm going to ask you, would you push the switch? Now for the second scenario. Once again, you're minding your own business, just making your way, doing whatever you do in your spare time, and you're crossing a bridge that goes over some trolley tracks. And you turn around, and gosh dang. And once again, there is a trolley going down, hell-bent on destruction. Brakes are out of control. And if you don't do anything, it's going to hit 5 workmen, and they're all going to die. There's a guy next to you who is massive. He must be 6 feet tall, probably as wide as he is tall, and he's just kind of leaning over that railing, watching the day go by. And you know that if you shove him over that railing, he'll be large enough to stop the trolley, and thereby he'll save the 5 men. But do you do it? So now what we're going to try to do is use these two scenarios to explain when is it okay to kill 1 to save 5. So now I want you to look at your 2 answers and think, why did I choose those 2 answers? And what may surprise you is you're not sure. You might just instinctively think it feels right, or that just makes sense. And what may surprise you even more is that's what about 70% of people will think of the situation. The majority of people cannot give accurate reasons to why their judgment changes or stays the same between these 2 problems. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through some answer choices you might have made, and we're going to try to pinpoint why it is that you made that decision. The first case we're going to look at is if you said you wouldn't pull the switch and you wouldn't shove the fat man. And probably what's guiding your thinking is Kantian ethics. And part of what Immanuel Kant says is that a person should never be used as a means to an end. And so in both of these situations, 1 person has to die in order for 5 people to live. And by having that 1 person die, you're violating their rights as a human to be a being. And even if this isn't what you thought, lots of people do think this and practice this in their daily lives. In one study, a group of researchers had British people and Chinese people answer these trolley questions. And not only were Chinese people less likely to pull the switch, they were also more likely to say that they wouldn't pull it because of fate or destiny or getting in the way of nature. So now for the second combination. If you said yes for both. And what I suspect you're thinking in this situation is you're thinking, wow, I can let 5 people die or 1 person die. And in your mind, it's obviously clear that it's better to have 1 person die than 5 people die. And in that way, you're really thinking in the realm of consequentialism. You care the most about the result. Not so much about how you get to the result, just how it happens. And you want the most people to be alive and happy and the best solution overall. So I'd really like to think that I'd choose this option, because I like to think that I'm the kind of person who would choose the greater good over anything and everything else. But I still can never imagine myself pushing the fat man to his death. Now we're going to get into what's really complicated about this question. What if you answer what I do, and you say you would push the switch, but you would not push the fat man? Theoretically, the same outcome. But still, the majority of people will not push the fat man, but will push the switch. And one team of researchers wanted to figure out why this was. So they had their subjects watch a simulation of the trolley problem, the first scenario, and had the workmen who were going to be killed screaming as the subject had to make their choice. And the results remained the same. About 90% would push the switch. But they found that people who were more emotional were less likely to push the switch, less likely to make the maybe rational decision in this scenario. And it's not even that skin deep, so to speak. It's actually related, as Joshua Green's research suggests, to how our brain works. He had a lot of people go through tests where he would ask them these questions. He asked them the scenario 1 and scenario 2. And they would still overwhelmingly answer yes to the first one, no for the second one. And then he would take MRIs of their brains while they did that. And he found that for each question, a different part of the brain would lit up. Because there's no part of the brain that does decision making. It's all the entire brain working together. Where this really gets interesting is when we examine a different scenario. And that's when we say that, oh, you and your entire village are hiding from people who are trying to kill you, but you happen to have a sick baby. And the baby will most likely cry out and give away your position, which will cause you, your baby, and the entire village to be killed. And the only way to stop this is for you to kill your child. And when he asked these questions to his subjects, people were split about 50-50. And what he noticed most of all is when people made the decision to kill their baby, the consequentialist idea, a different part of the brain would light up for longer and stronger. And so what this suggests is that what we think of moral is what's going to help our species and our gene pool the most. Because in this situation, the way that it was split was that you could either help your entire species by killing your baby and having other people similar to you live, or you could not kill your child and allow the small chance that your gene pool would expand further with this child. And so maybe even what we think of as moral is just what we selfishly want to happen in order for us to have more productive and prolonged existences. A little bit away from all this biology talk, and we'll go back to some surveys. In one survey, a group of researchers went to a college campus and asked all these people, they asked them the trolley problem was scenario 1, and then changed it up a little bit. They had the one person sitting on the track, had variations of age, relatedness to the person, and whether they were in a romantic relationship with that person. And they found that if the one person on the track was very young, very closely related to the subject, or was in a romantic partnership, the likelihood of that person pushing the switch dropped immensely. So used in conjunction with Joshua Green's research, this really propels the argument that what we think of moral is what will help our species the most. For example, if someone's young, well, they have a lot that they can do in their lives. They could have more kids. They can just make our species last longer. We should keep them. If they're genetically related to us, whoop, there's our gene pool. It can keep expanding. That's pretty great to our ape minds. 3, if it's a romantic partnership, that can directly get my genes somewhere. And I'm really about that. And so, what this really thinks is that when you should kill one to save 5 is whenever it's going to help your species and you the most. But I think the most important thing to look at when you see this discontinuity of answers between these two scenarios is to see what makes these scenarios different. One modern philosopher, Judith Jarvis Thomson, would suggest that what makes these two scenarios different is the claim of the outcome. With the workmen, we can assume that they are well informed, they're getting monetary compensation for their risky acts, and they're workmen. They're like, I'm on a railroad, and they kind of put themselves there. However, the poor fat man, he's just minding his own business. He has stuff to do, and he has no claim to this result of the trolley. And so his life being ended by this trolley that he has no reason to come in contact with ever, he's just not good. We don't like that. We don't think it's a good thing. And if you don't think this makes sense, let me change up a little bit. What if the fat man caused the trolley to go out of control? You probably don't feel as bad now. You'd be like, That man is a villain. He wants those 5 men to die. We should kill him. And one reason you might think that is because of the claim. So last but certainly not least, I want to introduce you to the doctrine of double effect. And what it says is that an act can only be good if it fulfills certain requirements. So the first act is that the person doing the action can't want the bad outcome. And that holds true so far. For the trolley problem, the first scenario, you don't push the switch and are like, yes, I get to kill one person with a trolley. And then the fat man problem, assuming you're a good person, you're not like, yes, I get to murder this man. So the next requirement is the net gain must be high enough. And that works for both of them still. In both cases, 5 people are going to live and 1 person's going to die. But the next 2 requirements are where the fat man problem really starts to differentiate. The next requirement is that the actual act has to be good or indifferent, and that works for the trolley problem because you're just, pushing a lever or flipping a switch, and that's indifferent. It's not great, but you're not doing anything bad. But in the fat man problem, you're actually taking the guy and shoving him, and you're killing him, and that's really bad. We call that murder, and you're not supposed to do it in a short. And the next one really is just like, you're doing everything wrong, fat man problem, because the next thing requires that the good outcome can't be caused by the bad outcome. And in the trolley problem, the death of the one is just an unfortunate side effect. Just like to get away from the 5, you just, whoop, he goes on the opposite rail. But in the fat man problem, the reason the trolley stops is because it killed someone. And that's bad, according to the doctrine of double effect. Obviously, this is never going to happen. You're never going to be walking down, getting ready to see your family, and then have an out-of-control trolley happen, and then you're going to make some moral decisions in your life. That isn't going to happen. But what is going to happen is it's going to generate questions. And this question has been around for a very long time. It keeps staying around, even though it was originally proposed just as an idea. People keep using it because people know that it generates controversy. And by doing that, by using this question, scientists and researchers can see exactly why people think stuff is moral. So I hope as you leave, you're not just like, this is stupid and silly, I'm never going to use this ever. I want you to try to think about how you think in moral and ethical situations in real life.